Hello and welcome to this Python project where you're making a game where you guess the mystery number. The program will come up with the mystery number and then the user will put in integers. The program will compare that number that they've put in, tell them if it's too high or too low, and when they get it correct it tells them how many tries it took. So let's have a look at it in action. As you can see, I've got it running with the cheat turned on so that I know what the mystery number is, but let's pretend that I don't. So I'm going to put in an integer, 500. Too low, then I'm going to go for 600, too high, then I'm going to go for 583, and it's going to tell me that I found it in 3 guesses. So that is the basic version of the program, but there's a little bit more sophistication to it than that. So let's say that I put in words instead of an integer, a string. It will give me an error and tell me to enter a whole number, so that's fine. What I'm going to do is enter a number that is now too big, and it'll tell me that it's too big, or maybe one that is too small, in which case it's got to tell me that it's going to tell me that it must be a positive number. And if I put in sensible numbers, of course it plays, and by sensible I mean integers, it just lets me play as normal. So that is the whole game. Now if you think you can just build this off your own bat, then go right ahead. What I have done is I have provided you with the data dictionary so you can see the variables that you need to use, and I would like you to use the same names that I've provided, please. Your testing table. So if you have got this working, and you're welcome to build it all on your own, you will be able to pass all of these tests in here. It might look like a lot, but that's just basically the stuff that I ran through. And here are the steps that you will need to go through to make this program. You don't have to use them like this, but I recommend that you do, and certainly this is where the help will be in this video. So by the time you get this document, there will be time codes there so that you can jump ahead and watch me do that if you need my help. But I'd encourage you to have a go on your own and see if you can do it without my help. So I'm about to start the first help bit. If you want to go off on your own, this is the time. Okay. Here we are at step number 1. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go over to my project, and what I'm actually going to do is paste this in as a comment so that I know what it is that I'm doing here. So let's just have a quick look. Yep, setup, variables, yep, and I say you can find the details. There we go. So that is now a comment. Sometimes people talk about hashing that out, or I just call it making a comment. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to read my comment. Well, I want a thing called cheat on. Now, that is a Boolean, which is what it says in the data dictionary. I could zip back to it, in fact, just to be thorough here. There we go. Cheat on is a Boolean. Max number, user guess, and guesses are all integers. So let's go back. So max number. Now, I'm going to say that the max number for this game equals 1,000, because that's as big as I want the number to get. User guess, this is going to start off being 0. And guesses is also going to start off being 0. There we go. So, I have done stage 1 of the project, and now I'm ready to go and have a look at stage 2. Alright, let's have a go at stage 2. Once again, I'm just going to grab that code there, and I'm going to pop it in as a comment, or the code, that description. Generate a random number between 1 and max number and assign this value to the variable called mystery. Well, before I start going ahead and making random numbers, I actually need to import the random dictionary, because this is not something that Python does on its own. So I've imported it, and now I'm going to get this thing, so mystery is going to equal, I'm calling the random library, I'm using randint, which means a random integer, between 1, and I could just type in 1,000 there, but I have a variable to do that job, which is max number. There we go. Now, let's just check and see that that's actually doing its job. I won't leave this code in long term, but I just want to check that when I run it, I'm getting a mystery number. There we go. Every time I run it, I get a mystery number. So there you go. Now I've done step 2. Okay, let's have a look at number 3. Number 3 says set a conditional so that the program shows the mystery number when the variable cheat on is set to true. Okay, well, at the moment it's actually showing it all the time. So what I'm going to do is put a conditional before it, and I'm going to say if cheat on equals true, which it does at the moment. Then I hit my full colon, and you'll now see that that will only operate when that's true. So I'll run that. There we go. If cheat on equals true, that needs to be 2 equal signs because it's asking a question. There we go. So that works when it's on. And I'm just going to check that if I set that to false, that it doesn't show it. So there we go. Yep. Fantastic. Well, I'm going to turn it back to true because I am going to want that cheat on while I'm doing the development. There we go. So now I've finished stage 3. Okay. Let's do step 4 together if you need help with this. So what we are going to do is it says here to set a while loop so that the program will keep going while the value of user guess does not equal the value of mystery. Well, this is pretty straightforward to code. So while user guess does not equal mystery, then the loop just keeps going. So as long as those two things are different, everything that is indented from here will just keep happening. For now, we actually don't have anything happening in here, and Python won't let you run a loop without something in it. So we're just going to put the word pass in, and that just means it's okay to keep going. So now when we run this, we'll actually notice that the program is just continuously running because those things don't match and we don't have an opportunity to fix that. But that's how you set up that loop. So we have satisfied that condition there. The next bit we're going to do is collecting an integer from the user. And this is actually a bit more work than it would seem. So let's just go and let's just do this in its simplest form. So mystery is not what I'm putting in here. I'm meant to be putting in user guess equals input. And then I ask them the question, which I'll just go and get out of the document. There we go. So, if I do this, you would be right in thinking that I can type it in. What do you think my number is? I just realised that I forgot to put the question mark in there. Okay, let's run that again. So, if I put in 100, of course, we'd expect it to drop out of the loop. To stay within the loop, because those things do not equal one another. But if I put in 959, you'll see that we're in fact still stuck in the loop. And the reason for this is that this number, which is mystery number, is an integer, and what we're putting in is actually a string. Now I'm going to prove this to you. So we're going to print the type of the variable user guess. Now you would think that because we entered a number, it would recognize that as a number. But if I put in 100, it in fact says that the class is a string. You might think this can't be that hard. Let's just tell it to collect it as an integer. So we say int input. So we're saying this thing that we're going to go and collect will be an int. And this will work to an extent. So 200, yep, still trapped in the loop. 212, and we break out of the loop. Well, so far so good. Here's why we can't just do that. If I type in something that isn't an integer, it actually breaks the program. Now, you might think, well, that's fine, we'll just break the program. But good programming, we actually do validation so that it doesn't break the program when the user does something unexpected. It adapts to this. Well, we're going to adapt to this using a thing called a try. So here is how the try works. We are going to set, first of all, a integer, not an integer, we are going to set a boolean called isValid. And we're going to keep running this particular condition as long as it's false. So we're going to say while isValid is false. Okay? Well, what we're going to do is we are going to, in here, so we've kind of got conditions within conditions, we are going to try this line here, line 27. We're going to try and collect it. But if it doesn't work, then what we're going to do is have this except condition where we're going to print an error message and say, please enter a whole number. Okay, so let's see if this works. So I run the program again. If I say 400, yep, it accepts it. If I write 2, it says please enter a whole number, but it doesn't throw me out of this loop yet because I'm still it still equals false. Well, let's say that when they get it right and they successfully enter an integer, then isValid will equal true. Let's try that again and see if it works. So, 500, yeah, 2, please enter a whole number, yeah, 127, fantastic. Well, that works. We collected an integer from the user. If they enter something that is not an integer, then we say, please enter a whole number and repeat the prompt. Well, so far we have that working. Let's get to part number 6. So I'm just going to copy this in here, and I've done a little bit of formatting just to make it easier. There we go. So it's telling me that if userGuess is less than 1, then show the error message. Well, what I'm going to do, we've got try and except, and there's a third condition here called else. What else basically means, which I find a little bit confusing, is success. So things went well. We tried this and it worked, so we go to else. If we try this and it doesn't work, it goes to accept. So we are now assuming, or not, we can safely assume that we have an integer. Okay, well what we want to do is we want to test it. So what I'm actually going to do is I am going to indent those a little bit so that they're on the same line as the else. Okay, so now we want to test if userGuess is less than 1, then we are going to print a message saying must be a positive number. Let me just, let me just go back and check. Yep, your guess must be a positive number. There we go. And because I don't want them leaving this loop, I'm actually going to put isValid back to false because they've failed the test, if you like. So let's run this and see if it works. So -1, there you go, must be a positive number, and we're still in that loop in that it is still asking for us because it's not happy with what we've done. So there you go, we have finished number 6, and you might actually be feeling confident enough to do number 7 without watching the video because it's running another very similar test. Okay, let's have a go at step 7. So if the userGuess is more than maxNum, which is set to 1000, show the error message, this is too large for me to test, and repeat the prompt. Well, pretty easy. So back here, and we want to make sure that we're back on the same level as our first test. So we're still within the else condition, which means we have got an integer. We've already run that first test there, and now we're running this next test. Again, I'm going to copy that in just so that I know what it is that I'm working on. There we go, show the error message, and you'll see that I'm just doing a little bit of tidying up here. And repeat the prompt, and again, this is really just tidying it up so that I've got easy comments to read. Great, so if userGuess, in this case, is larger than maxNum. Now, I'm actually just going to copy and paste this here because I've already got something that I know works in this situation. So I think it says this number is too large to test. There we go. And again, I'm making it false so that we're still stuck in this situation here. We are validating this number. We're running multiple validations on it. So let's run it again. Okay, I'm actually just going to test a few of my validations here. Yep, enter a whole number. Good, that's what I expected. If it is too small, -1. Oh, there we go. So that didn't work. So if userGuess is greater than maxNumber, maxNumber, and I just wrote maxNum. Okay, well that happens. Now actually what I'm going to do is just check my data dictionary. maxNum is in fact the correct name for that. So maxNum there, maxNum there, and maxNum down there. Part of the reason we have a data dictionary. Okay, so again 2, that fails, yeah. -1 or -4 fails, and 1100 fails. Fantastic. But if I then put in something within the correct range, then it succeeds. Okay, so far so good. We have satisfied that step there, and we're ready to move on to the next step. This next step is where we're going to check if user guess is an integer, so it's an integer between 1 and 1,000, so it's going to have passed all of those tests. We're going to compare its value with the value of mystery. And if it's lower, we're going to show the message, your guess was too large. Well, the trickiest thing here is that this can only happen once it is valid. So this while is valid equals false, it's after that conditional or that loop. So we actually need to run our cursor all the way. I'm going to actually run it all the way back to the edge of the page, and then I'm going to tab in. So that lines up under the while loop, which means that it's not within the while loop. All this stuff that's indented, that's controlled by the while loop. So now we're going to put this in, and I'll just hash that in. There we go. And let's just check. There we go. And I'm just going to make sure that that's all readable. It is. Okay, so I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to say again back here, if user guess, so if user guess is smaller than mystery, yep, well then, I'm going to put the colon on there. We're going to print your guess is too small. There you go. No, it's too large we're checking for. So in actual fact, I'm flipping that sign over. If user guess is greater than mystery, your guess is too large. There we go. And now we'll check that that works. So I run this. I'm going to check 700. Your guess is too large. Excellent. So that's that step done. Okay, and now we're up to step 9, our second last step. So I'm just going to paste the comment in here. This just helps me keep track of what I've done and what I haven't done. There we go, and I'm just going to break that over 2 lines just so that it's a little bit easier to read. Now, no great surprises here. Compare the value of user guess with the value of mystery, and if it is higher, show us the message. User guess with the value of mystery, it is higher. If it is lower, I better fix that back in the original document. If it is lower, show the message, your guess was too small. So I'm actually just going to steal that code there. So copy that. Again, I need to make sure that it's on the right indent so that it lines up with that one there. If user guess is smaller, then your guess is too small. Okay, so we run that. So I'm going to guess something that I know is too small. Yep. And I'm going to check something that is too large. Good, both of those work. And now when I put in the actual guess, it'll break out of the program. So I'm very nearly finished. But before I go on, I want to point something out. You'll notice that we're still indented here. We're not indented as much as we were while we're in the while loop, but the reason we're indented is because guess still does not equal mystery. Once it does equal mystery, then we'll break out of that while loop there. So we got while loops within while loops within while loops. Oh, maybe we've just got 2 levels of it, but still, we are still within the main while loop. So down here is where we're going to do part 10. So let's finish this project off with part 10. You showed the message, you found it with 2 guesses with the correct number. You only count guesses where they provided valid input. So down here, I'm going to go right to the very edge because they've broken out of the main while loop. It is now the case that user guess does equal the mystery number, and so we are out of that big loop that we've been running in for most of this program. So we are going to print, and we are going to print, actually, I just realised, let's put the help text in. So there we go. Let's get that sorted out so that it's on the right indent. There we go. So we are simply going to print, and I just do need to run that back. I don't know why it's so keen on indenting that. Print, you found it, in, and now I need a variable in there. In, and then, let me just close that up, guesses. Now I just realised that I actually don't need that space there because when you use a comma, when you're switching from a string to a variable, it actually assumes a space in there. Now, when I run this, it's actually going to tell me that I did it in 0 guesses. So let's get a couple wrong, and then let's get it right. There you go. It said I got it in 0 guesses. And actually what I need to do is also put in the word guesses there. But still, it's going to think that it's 0. That's because we actually haven't been counting our guesses as we go. And I say in the description, we only want to count the ones where they put in a valid number. So down here, where we're checking whether it's too large and too small, before we do any of that, I'm going to increase guesses. So guesses is going to equal guesses plus 1. And then at the bottom, that will be the correct number. But let's just play it and make sure it works. So 500, too small. 900, too large. 2, yep, is not a whole number. Minus 9 is not a positive number. 1100 is too large to test, but I think that I've actually only had 2 guesses. So let's get it right on our third guess, and it is, just looking at the cheat, 820, 820. And I have found it in 3 guesses, which is correct because it only counted the guesses where I put in something that was valid to test. So that's the end of the program. I hope you built some of it yourself without my help, and I hope that you learnt things along the way.